On this very important episode of Local Film Talk, we're chatting with filmmakers Michael Babbitt and Michael Howard about the importance of production insurance and why you need it for your next film. Very informative episode, and if you want to be the first to get it, then subscribe to our YouTube channel, Local Film Talk, and if you don't have time to sit down and watch the video, then subscribe to the Local Film Talk podcast on iTunes. Now let's get to it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Local Film Talk. This is the show where we talk to people in the local film community and get a lot of tips and advice that can hopefully help you in your own productions. I'm Bob Walters of Triangle Life TV.
And I'm Conrad Arnold of Triangle Film Community. And we're going to be talking with Michael Babbitt of The Endless Whispers and Michael Howard of the upcoming feature Where We're Meant to Be today, about production insurance and why you, as an indie filmmaker, absolutely need to have it in your film.
Why, so many people at this level, they think it's something expensive, it's something complicated, and it's something that they can skirt around. Our film is just an afternoon shoot in somebody's kitchen, but, anything goes wrong and you could be on the hook for it. So pretty good chat.
You and I have both worked on a few of those just afternoon shoots, which were just one tiny shred of luck away from disaster.
Mm-hmm. I think we probably ran a couple of those sets too.
I think so.
So tell us a little bit, before we get into things, tell us a little bit about what you're working on, what Triangle Film Community is up to, Conrad.
Well, Triangle Film Community has a screening coming up on the 17th. It is an encore of our Unexposed program that we did for Film Spark 2015. Not a lot of people made it out to that one, and they're just really good experimental films. And it's just a shame that people missed out on it the first time around. So we're really happy to bring it back. It's 8 local artists who made these really great experimental films. They were all curated by the Smith twins, who run the Unexposed Microcinema in Durham.
And those guys are awesome. Those guys are a hoot to hang out with.
Dude, I hit them up. I hadn't even met them in person. I just told them what I wanted, like just a curated local experimental program for Film Spark. And even though they were putting together a film festival happening up in Maine happened during the same weekend as Film Spark. Mm-hmm. Even though they were working their asses off putting that together, they still did it.
That's awesome.
How awesome they are. They still did it. And they're going to be there when we do the screening to introduce the program, which is really cool because the Smith brothers they're just great at what they do.
Right. I think we're both getting texted by the same person.
Yeah, we're both getting the same notifications.
Yeah. But and I know the idea of experimental film scares a lot of people off, but it's something. It's different. It's not as crazy as it sounds. And like I said, the Smith twins are awesome guys. They're great at introducing you to this stuff. I went and saw my first batch of experimental films over at their Unexposed their venue over in Durham, and it was a really cool experience that I would recommend to anyone. So if you are at all interested in finding out what it's all about, because your perception is probably wrong, hit up this screening in the Cary Theater. What was the date again?
It's March 17th.
March 17th.
And the thing is that when it comes to experimental films, people watch a ton of experimental work without even realizing it, because a lot of music video techniques, a lot of commercial techniques are all born out of the experimental film school. And you just take out all of the stuff where they're trying to sell you on a band or they're trying to sell you a product, and you just boil it down to what it is, and you put it in the art context. Boom. Experimental.
And how often do people watch a by the numbers genre movie on Netflix and just say, this is getting boring. I want something interesting. I want something new. Well, here you go. Here's something interesting and new.
Yeah, like
So,
2001, right? The whole slit scan thing at the end.
right.
Born out of experimental film. Do you like surreal movies? That was born out of experimental film. You know,
It's where innovation comes from, you know?
It really is.
Come out to the Unexposed screening. You might see the next interesting technique or storytelling method that ends up in your next favorite Hollywood blockbuster.
It's true.
And we also have a slightly more mainstream thing coming up, a little show we've been working on. You want to tell the folks about that?
Oh, yeah.
Also
okay.
in March.
So Bob and I have been involved with a sketch comedy troupe. We shot a promo that's on Facebook right now under the Zero Headspace Facebook page.
Also Zero Headspace on YouTube.
Yes, Zero Headspace Comedy on YouTube.
Comedy,
because there's a Canadian band that had to call themselves Zero Headspace 3 years ago and never updated after that. So,
and this will not stand. We are officially declaring war on Canada. But first, come to our comedy show.
Yes, which is the weekend of March 18th.
That's going to be a busy week. Come out to Unexposed on the 17th, and then 2 days later, come out to Zero Headspace, a theater in the park.
Actually, the very next day.
Well, yeah, it's actually 3 days, right? 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Yes, all at 8 p.m.
Yes.
Mature audiences, leave your kids at home. They are not wanted.
There might be a poop or fart joke in there, so
actually,
play it safe, folks.
You should remind your kids that they are unwanted before you leave them at home alone to go see the sketch show.
It's really best, you know. It'll help them build character.
And we want them to have character.
So, Unexposed screening on the 17th. Zero Headspace live show, sketch comedy, Raleigh's first and therefore best comedy sketch troupe at 8 p.m. on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of March. It'll be a big weekend. Last bit of business before we get down to the meat of our episode are these empty frames on my wall. I've been talking about this for 3 weeks, people. You're starting to make me look bad. I need some posters.
Why aren't you giving Bob posters? I mean, come on.
It's free advertising.
All you have to do is make a freaking poster, and he'll put it there behind his head.
It's 11 by 17, a standard mini movie poster. A lot of you people who are making posters to advertise your films probably have already made some of these, or your poster is already formatted for such. You just have to shrink it down. All you got to do is get us a copy. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not charging you anything. I guess it just costs you postage, unless you bring it to us and put it in our hot little hands at a Triangle Film Community meetup. But that's it. You give us the poster. It'll be in the background in these episodes as long as they're available on the internet. We'll be sure to give you a plug during this segment right here at the beginning of the show. Rather than sitting here and talking about these sad empty frames on my wall with the stock photo of a frickin' sunflower or something, we could be talking about your awesome poster for your awesome movie and telling everybody they need to go out and see it the first chance they get.
I don't look at the sunflower anymore.
It's like one of those magic eye pictures. It's a sailboat now. Can you see the sailboat?
It's a schooner.
When do I get to see the sailboat?
I can never see those things, man.
I can't either.
I crossed my eyes so freaking hard.
Those of us that wear glasses did not have much eye pictures. But I digress many times. So there we go, folks. That's what we're up to. Please come out and join us at these various shows in March. Triangle Film Community has lots of other cool stuff coming up that we'll be announcing soon. So
let's get to it.
Yes.
This is a dense episode, man. There's a lot of information in this one, and anyone who doesn't watch it fails to watch it at their own peril.
Absolutely. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, here's an extremely informative chat that we had with filmmakers Michael Babbitt and Michael Howard. Enjoy. I find spending the first 3 minutes of the episode with our guest just kind of staring while I tweet.
Yeah, you guys talk.
Exciting.
I'll stare into the distance at my other computer.
Since Conrad's going to be pretty comatose this episode anyway, so you can at least type for us.
I could talk for you.
So we should say all the good stuff now in the first 3 minutes before anybody gets on here?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I just I'd been interested in well, actually, first thing, Mike Howard, you're have you finished? You're actually going to be screening Where We're Meant to Be in like a month, which is pretty cool. Have you actually finished it yet? Or are you in the last minute crunch?
It's in the last bit. Chris Medico's finishing up the coloring now. He's right at the edge of it. Mike Andreas is finishing up the sound. And we got Stephen Grove doing some score for it that he's finishing up. So everybody's kind of right at the last little bit to do, and then I'll do some tightening of it. And yeah, we'll have it ready.
Pretty exciting to be almost done, huh?
Yeah, it's a cool feeling. It's nice. It'll be cool to get it out there. The cast and crew premieres at the end of this month, and then it premieres at the Vail Film Festival April 8th. So it'll be nice to get.
Not familiar with that one.
Audience. Say what?
I said I'm not familiar with that festival. Where is that one?
It's in Vail, Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. Okay.
Up in the mountains there. So it'll play 8th and 10th there.
Oh, hey, you get to go to Colorado in the spring. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. It'll be right. They still have snow, but it's usually kind of warm, so it's a good mix.
Awesome. And we got Michael Babbitt here, joining us all the way from Houston, Texas. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
So, can you tell the people what you're doing there, or is it still top secret?
Oh, well, what I'm doing here is just meeting with the writer of The Endless Whispers, because we haven't actually really physically seen each other in roughly about a decade, because he used to live in Taiwan, and he moved back here 2.5 months ago, and so this was an opportunity for us to do some actual work. Well, to do some actual work on the script, talking about some of the aspects of the script, actually in person, which is kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah, the last time I talked to you, he was still living overseas, so I guess this is pretty recent. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he came back in December, I think. So. Nice.
Yep. It was good to be able to get up and see each other face to face again. And Definitely. You're working on
especially given the circumstances.
Right.
Well, the scripts, it's just the constant work on the script. I mean, the script doesn't stop getting worked on until you premiere the film. So, it's just that constant work on the script. But we're knee deep in getting ready to ramp up for production, which is the ever likelihood the indication is going to be sometime August or September.
That's very cool. So how much can you tell us about that?
I tell you whatever you want to know.
It's still all super secret or anything?
No, nothing secret about it.
Okay.
We signed some pretty big B names to the film, to the producers out of LA, and that is moving our investment qualifications along a lot faster than we had previously been at. And it looks like I will be going to China for pre-production stuff, for some scouting, final casting, stuff like that in April, and then coming back here, spending a couple more months here, and then in August or September, more than likely September, heading over for actual production.
So you're actually going to be shooting in China?
Yep, in China.
Interesting.
Wow.
We're going to have to
I'll do an audition for you right here. Let's do it.
There you go. You could do all this stuff over the web now. It's so much easier.
Yes.
You be or...
Yeah. Mike Howard is really excited about that that paid trip to China.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's really cool. We're going to have to get you back on to talk more about that project as it's coming along.
Be glad to, yeah. Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind the last 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I am hip deep in major storyboarding, because we don't know how they know that when the money gets green lit, it's going to happen very fast, the turnaround to shoot. So I'm trying to make sure, before we had all this time because the development was going so slow, so I was able to take my time. But now it's like, we could get greenlit next week and then be shooting, sometime late to early fall. So I'm trying to pull everything out of my butt now.
You never plan too much, man. It's always good to have more ready.
Great.
Well, that is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
The reason I decided to have you guys both on is because I had heard both of you talking on separate occasions fairly recently about a topic that I know I don't know a whole lot about. I have a feeling a lot of other people in the indie film community don't know a whole lot about, and I thought maybe you could kind of help explain it to everybody, and that is production insurance. You know, insurance is one of those things. It always sounds, you know, it can be expensive, and it's always one of those, you know, why do I really need it? We're just going to run it and gun it, and everything will be okay. But that can, you know, it's a lot easier for that to turn into a disaster than most people think. So let's start with you, Mike Howard. I know you actually touched on this a little bit on your presentation at the Carborough Film Festival, but tell us a little bit about your experience with getting insurance when you did Where We're Meant to Be.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's not tough to get the insurance. It's more about just paying for it and finding out what kind you need. I mean, everybody's basically looking at, I mean, the most common will just be your general liability insurance. And so, you know, that's going to protect against damage to the filming location and space or the different things like that. A lot of times, depending on where you shoot or if you need to rent equipment, you're going to need that anyway to be able to get cleared to shoot there. So it's important in that regard. But just, yeah, of course, just to safeguard, you know, anywhere you're filming, whether it's a friend's apartment or, you know, a public space or whatever, you know, it's pretty important to have. But it does get pricey, and the price goes up depending on whether there's children or water or weapons or stunts or things like that. And so depending on what your production consists of, then you know, it can certainly add up, especially if you need it for a long period of time.
Now was Where We're Meant to Be your first experience in actually getting production insurance for a shoot?
For the most part, long ago we did a public scene in a mall once, and we got 1 day of insurance, and that was it. And so this was the first time that I really had to kind of go in such in-depth, you know, amount of days. And, you know, we had firearms on set, and there were kids and things like that. So a lot of those things had to be taken into account this time that I hadn't had to worry about in the past.
Right. So what about you, Michael Babbitt? You're obviously getting ready to gear up on the Endless Whispers feature film, but you've also done a couple shorts leading up to it, and I know you've got a lot of other stuff under your belt. What's your history of getting production insurance? Did you get all the Endless Whispers shorts insured?
Basically, everything that we've shot since, including Faces, which was 2012. So I guess that's 9 different short films. Yeah, 9. So 9. The last 9 films we've done have actually all had 2 types of insurance. Actually, we don't just do production insurance. We also carry workman's comp because if an actor gets injured or somebody that's working, because we're hiring contractors. If the contractors get injured, workman's comp covers them, and workman's comp's actually pretty cheap.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that was something that Mike Howard had mentioned in his presentation at the Carborough Film Festival, is that in North Carolina they haven't really worked out the laws really well about hiring an actor. So in North Carolina, you're technically just hiring contractors for a few days, right?
Great.
Okay.
Well, if you do SAG, you can't hire them as contractors. SAG only represents employees. So with North Carolina, you have to hire them as employees, as if you were hiring someone as a Walmart cashier or something like that. They're among the same level. But then with North Carolina, you also, if you have 3 or more employees, you have to do workman's comp. So whether you want to or not, that's the law with it. So if you have 3 SAG actors or more, then you're going to be getting it, and it can get pretty, you know, expensive depending on how long it is and how many people there are. But if you're doing a couple days or a person or 2, or just, you know, general workman's comp just to cover yourself, like Michael Babbitt was saying, you know, to cover the people that are on set, that can vary.
Yeah, and even convolute that a little bit more. When you do a SAG production, you might think that the actual actors that are just SAG are the ones that count as the employees, But the way SAG works, everybody that signs a Taft-Hartley, which is everybody else that's not actually SAG, they have to sign a Taft-Hartley. They're still treated exactly like they would be a SAG actor. They're just, it's just, they're like indentured or apprenticed or whatever. But you still have to pay for them. You still have to pay, even though they're not a SAG actor, you have to pay into the pension, the SAG pension, as if they were. So it's the same thing. Yes. So it's the same thing with workman's comp. So if you've got a production that's got 12, if you got a production that's got like 12 actors in it, but you've only got 3 SAG actors, technically, all those other 9 have to sign Taft-Hartleys, and you have to pay workman's comp for them too because they're all SAG actors.
Okay. Wow.
The nice thing about that, fortunately, though, is now that SAG, it does have these different things with new media and all that. With ultra low
new media
budget,
is different, yeah.
You don't have to worry about it there. Ultra low budget, it can be a mix, but the thing that you fall into there is that it's back, at least with North Carolina, is that you can try to say someone's, an independent contractor and say, okay, well, I'm paying them this and that, but the state can come back and say that they don't fall under independent contractor status because you had them there at certain days and certain times. It's not like you told them, hey, go edit this, you got a month, do it whatever days you want. Once you have very specific times and such, they can fall under that, and then with North Carolina law, then they have to have workers' comp.
Yep.
Okay. Well, now it's gotten all big and scary again. So, but obviously obviously it's got to be worth it. I'm sure you guys. I know Michael, you have a few stories, and Michael Babbitt. this two Michael things.
Yeah.
But I know Michael Babbitt has a few stories. You probably have a couple too, Mike Howard. Is there anything? I mean, you don't have to, name names or anything making anybody look bad. But do you have any stories or examples just to kind of illustrate the kind of things that you're going to want insurance for? The kind of things that you think might not be a big deal, but could end up biting you in the ass if you don't have insurance.
Oh, who do you want to go first, me?
Yeah. Let's go, Michael Babbitt first.
Well, there's just, okay, a lot of this is all convoluted based off of, if we're going to include the whole SAG thing into this, if you don't have insurance on a production, so, okay, it's going to be bad enough that you don't have insurance. Let's say somebody gets injured, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's bad enough, because then you've got to figure out a way to pay that person's bill, and you don't have insurance for it, so it's going to come out of your pocket.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be like you were trying some kind of crazy stunt, like somebody jumping off a roof or something. It could be a scene where somebody goes up to the front door and knocks on the door, and they just trip on the front step.
Right.
Or they knock over a light or something, yeah.
Yeah, it could be anything that happens on your set. Right. And if that happens, that's bad enough. But if you throw SAG in there, and SAG hears that you didn't have insurance, they can literally come down and shut your production down.
Oh,
so now you're faced
with an unsafe environment for their.
Yes, because now you're faced with not only having to pay out of your pocket, but you don't get to make the movie that you were now going to pay out of your pocket for that So and
that's not a money thing. They have just deemed your set to be unsafe and unworthy of their people being there, and so they can just. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so for me, the whole insurance aspect, thankfully, we've actually, in the time we've had insurance, I'm going to knock on wood, we've never actually had to we've never had to use it. So that's actually a good thing.
You can however many days.
Yeah, it means we haven't had any accidents that have required that kind of thing, which is nice. But the safety of having it there, as independent filmmakers, let's face it, when we look at our budget and we go, I really need a good sound engineer. I really have to do that, but I really have to have insurance too. Which one am I going to go for? Well, we don't really need the insurance because we're filming a romantic comedy and they never leave the house, and we'll all be safe, and if anything happens, we'll cover it. Yeah. We all take that risk. Everybody takes that risk. you know, but there's going to come a time when you got to say, this, you know, I don't know, part of it's like this is not a hobby anymore. You know, as a professional, I need to treat my employees like they're professionals. Then that means, one, I provide a safe environment, and two, if something should happen, I need to be able to take care of them.
Right.
So it's just, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. You know, budgetary issues. I mean, if you threw all the money at me, and the great thing about the Endless Whispers, though, is now that these producers out of LA are involved in this, I don't have to worry about this shit.
They handle all that paperwork, right?
I don't have to. I'm not going to have to worry about the SAG stuff. I'm not going to have to worry about who's getting insurance. I don't have to worry about any of that anymore, which is really nice.
They're going to let you focus on the creative stuff. That'll be nice.
Yes, really nice.
Okay. And you know, Mike Howard, do you have any stories, any examples where you know, having insurance or not having insurance you know, made a big difference in a production you were working on?
No, not in actually having to use it. We've also been fortunate that we haven't had any, you know, injuries or problems with anything. But the couple times we ran into being fortunate that we had it was like we needed to get a follow focus. We wanted a wireless follow focus for a certain scene. So we tried to go to Alton Tuning and rent it.
Yes, the tuning.
And we had to have insurance. We had to get them named on it and send them a certificate of liability insurance to prove that we had insurance. So had we not had it and tried to fly under the radar, then we would not have been able to rent from them. And you're going to run into that same type of thing if you're trying to rent cameras or you know, high-priced things like that anyway. So right there,
locations as well.
That's exactly what the next thing is that we shot at the North Carolina Specialty Hospital, and there's no way we would have gotten that without insurance. In fact, they did us a favor because we had $1 million occurrence for each occurrence insurance and $2 million for aggregate. And the hospital charges or required $1 million and $3 million, and so that would have cost a lot more to pay for in order to have that. But they did us a favor and they accepted our $1/2 million insurance, and so we were able to shoot there. But having nothing would have been completely out of the question because we were shooting in their emergency, you know, departments. We were shooting on their equipment and things like that. They wouldn't have let us in the door without it. And so if you want to shoot in places like that, you know, that's going to be important. And then there were some people that didn't ask for it or require it, or didn't require it or see it, but they did ask us. And so had we told them, no, we're not insured, then likely they would have said, you know, this isn't the restaurant for you. So.
Right. Okay. So now that we've kind of gone into like a lot of the stuff that's involved and kind of the big scary reasons for why you need it, it's not as daunting as a lot of people probably think it is. So can you know, I guess especially you, Michael Babbitt, having done it on a lot of shorts, you know, most of the people in the indie community are working on short films and everything. So can you kind of walk us through the process of getting insurance for just a, you know, a 1 or 2 day shoot for a short film?
Well, it's really simple. I use, and I don't have that information here with me, but I use, you can find a number of good, reputable websites that offer production. They're specifically geared towards offering small productions production insurance. And I found one of them, and man, and I do not remember the name because now that I have them, I just simply, you go into the website, you fill out all the needs that you have, how much insurance you need, and then, you know, the most difficult part probably is doing the research to find out what kind of coverage you should have. Because, you know, there are a lot of daunting freaking names that they give to everything. And, you know, you go...
You're dealing with lawyers. That's what they're going to do.
Right. Right. So, you know, you know, the first time somebody threw E&O insurance at me, I was like, what the hell is E&O insurance? And we've never had E&O insurance. I chose not to have E&O insurance for the shorts, but we do have it for the feature. So, you know, because it's much more important for something that you think is going to go through the entire chain of a film, you know, through distribution and through investment and then distribution and on. You know, so there are different types. It's oh God, what's it stand for? Errors and omission. Yeah, errors and omission. It basically means in the chain of ownership, if you screwed something up, like like you forgot to register it with the Writers Guild, and then 3 years down the road, a company comes in and said, we want to sell your movie. They go, do you have your chain of ownership? And you say, oh yeah. And then they say, well, where's your WGA registration? And you say, oh, we didn't do it. Well, that errors and omission, you got that insurance covered. That helps you pay for any mistakes that you have to do and covers any information that might happen in certain circumstances. That there's a lot of other uses for it too, but that's one of the primaries. It's basically if you screw up something somewhere along the line of the life of the film, that helps that determines who has the clear ownership of the film. That error and omissions is there to help take care of that.
Yeah, and it protects against lawsuits alleging like unauthorized use of your titles, ideas, formats, characters, plots, plagiarism, all that stuff. And the nice thing about that is you can get that after the fact, like after you shoot, but before distribution, and which is what we'll do if we distribute, because you need to have it at some point. But it is very expensive, and so it's not something that you can necessarily do up front in pre-production. Be like, oh, we'll just cover ourselves now, because you'll be paying thousands for it at least, and so it is something to look at later. But it does, kind of help you with all of that, and that's usually where you'll have some sort of entertainment lawyer who's going to review it and worry about things like clearances and releases and stuff like Michael was talking about.
Yeah. Like you did a one-day shoot with a bunch of extras out on a racetrack, and you didn't get everybody to sign waivers. Your errors and omissions would help cover that for when the possibilities of somebody coming back and saying, I don't want you using my my face in that film, things like that. All the regulations just it's nutty, but you got to cover your bases.
Right. So at what point in the production do you, because like Michael Babbitt, like you were saying, at least on the website that you go to, a lot of filling out the form is kind of specifying what's going to be involved in the production. And obviously when you're still like cooking the idea up in your head, you probably don't know all those details. So at what stage of the production, and I guess this also goes back to both of you guys' experience, at what point did you say, all right, we're far enough along, we have all the information to fill out those forms?
Well, the way the service that I go through, I think it takes roughly about 8 to 9 days to process it all. So really, it's really just 8 to 9 days before you need it. Like if you're gonna rent like one of the like Faces, when we shot Faces, we shot in one of the old lofts above the old scrap exchange in downtown Durham, and the people that own the building, they wanted I think they wanted $1 million in general liability. I can't remember exactly what it was. So so that was for the location, and we were renting some equipment from the tunings. Well, we were going to pick the equipment up 2 days before the shoot, and we had to have a location on a specific shoot. So it was just a matter of backtracking about 8 days before that to make sure that it was all processed so that I could sign for it. They were comfortable enough getting it in time to be able to sign for it, and we could pick the equipment up and go. That's really when how we decided when we needed to actually pull the trigger and pay for it.
Okay.
Yeah, and really just once you know what you need, you can do it at any time, because you're going to pick your date to start it. So if you say, I want to start insurance on June 2nd, you can do it in April. It doesn't matter when you do it ahead of time. But yeah, about 2 weeks is kind of the norm for it to process through. It'll take you a day at most to really go through it, even for a complicated one. So it is fairly easy to do it. You're just going through, like you said, the form. You kind of go down this form, and then it asks you questions. Are there minors? Are there firearms? Are there stunts? Is it going to be on water? Blah, blah, blah. And then the representative will go through all of that and say, okay, all of these things add up to this, and then you either pay it or you don't. And we worked through, her name is Michelle Corcoran, and it's with the Insurance Professionals Incorporated, and they're out of Cary, and I highly suggest her. She's really great, and she worked really well with us, even splitting some time up, because we shot over a couple-month period, but we weren't shooting every day or every weekend, and so sometimes there was some splits in there that she really helped us with. Sometimes you can, sometimes it's harder to do that, depending on the time frame that you're looking at. But little things like that, if you're a couple weeks out and kind of getting through, then you should be good to go. But one thing to keep in mind is that you're going to want to minimize your days because every day costs money. One day will add quite a bit of money to it. So say you're going from June 2nd to June 22nd, well, those are the days you're insured. So if you think that you're going to go pick up your camera on June 1st so that you can get everything ready, and then the next morning, June 2nd, is your first start date, you may run into troubles because they're not going to give you that camera on June 1st because you're not covered until June 2nd. So keep those things in mind too if you need to pick up equipment or get into a location early to set up lights, or whatever the case is, that you might need your insurance to cover that. And it's a lot easier to do those things ahead of time trying to backtrack on days after you've already paid your rate and had it all ready.
Yeah, and that follows up with the tail end too. If you end up on June 22nd deciding we have 2 more days we got to shoot, don't think you're going to be covered for those 2 extra days. You need to immediately go back and say, well, we need to pay for 2 extra days of insurance because we won't be covered for those. So
Right.
Yeah.
And most places will charge you by day. So you can buy like a month lump sum, say, and you only do 23 days, and then you want to go and add those other 2 days. Depending on the place you get, and I don't know all the specifics of insurance, some may not even be able to do it, but they'll probably charge you 2 more days. They're not going to say, okay, well, you paid this much for your monthly rate, we'll just kind of tuck it in there or something like that. You'll most likely be paying those single days, which are more expensive, and so it can hurt your budget in that regard.
Right. Now I know with with Where We're Meant to Be, you had several weeks and on occasions months later, you actually had to do some reshoots, some pickup days. Did you have to go back and reapply for insurance for those?
Technically, that would have been the case. We were covered for most of it, and that was one of the things, like Michael was also saying earlier. It's like you kind of sometimes you take that chance. One of the reshoots we had was literally Chris Medico's kitchen. He has a nice spacey kitchen, and so we were doing a reshoot in that place, and so we opted not to go get the additional insurance for there. He has all of his equipment stuff he was using there, but it goes right back into that risk. You got to kind of weigh that risk because say somebody does trip over a light and it falls and it breaks Chris's camera, who's paying for that? If that's his livelihood and he's got to shoot in 2 days that he can't do now, and he's losing money plus the money for the repair, he's going to be looking at you, the director or producer, saying, all right, you got to cover this. And if you're looking at them saying, hey man, you knew that things could happen, you could have said no, but you were willing to, so I think that you should cover this, then things can go badly quickly. And
Pretty
it's just,
quickly, yeah.
Workers' comp that, say someone trips over a light, a cord, and it knocks over a light stand and hits somebody in the head. They get a concussion or stitches or something like that. Is it the fault of the person who's in charge of the set? Is it, Jonathan's fault for tripping because he was clumsy? Is it Greg's fault because he didn't tape down the cable? There's all sorts of different things that can go wrong, and ultimately you as the producer, director, whoever, you're going to be the one in charge of it, and someone might end up suing you even if they're a friend or friendly, when it comes to the fact that they have $10,000 in medical bills that they can't cover now and you can't cover it, and that's on you personally. Even if you have an LLC or something like that, you're still going to be responsible in some way for it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I was on a shoot. This was a long time ago. I was on a shoot in the early '90s. I was acting at that time, and I was involved in some stunts for the shoot. And one of the stunts involved me going up over the hood of a car and across a windshield. And
what could go wrong?
We practiced. Well, we practiced it. We worked it. You're young and stupid. We practiced it, worked it, and stuff like that. Well, the driver, when the actual action happened, the driver got a little overzealous, punched it a little too hard, and it separated my shoulder. I spent the rest of the day finishing the shoot because I wasn't going to not finish the shoot.
Young and stupid, right?
and then they took me to the hospital, and at the hospital, found out I was going to have surgery to repair it, all this kind of stuff like that. And the director, in this case, they didn't have any insurance, but the director immediately stepped up and said he was going to pay for everything. And I'm pretty certain that the bills for everything when said and done was somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000 that got added to the budget because of that. And I still have the scar today.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, and again, that's one of those things, like Mike Howard was saying about, you got to weigh those risks and everything. You're talking here about, and granted, that was a flipping over the hood of the car stunt, not the kind of thing that's necessarily in your average indie short, but, I mean, medical bills, anybody who has had to spend time in a hospital knows that those bills rack up really fast.
Yes,
And when it's, when that decision comes down to, do I spend $1,000 on the insurance, on the off chance that I end up with somebody who needs $25,000 worth of medical bills, I mean, and I hate to tell people, maybe you should not make a movie, but if you're in the position where you can't afford the $500,000 or whatever for the insurance, then you sure as hell can't afford the $20,000 in medical bills. Maybe you need to rethink your project a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about. I did want to ask really quick because you were talking about like the time frames and specific days and everything. So when you apply for the insurance, you have to have your date set. You can't just say, I'm going to be shooting for 3 days sometime this summer. You
Nope.
gotta go ahead and give them the dates, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And those can sometimes change if it's the same one. Like, I think that happened to us. I'm pretty sure we'd already started it at that time, and we moved it, and so it was going to cover a 3-week period, but it started a week later and ended a week later than we had planned originally, and they were able to shift it because it still covered the same amount of days. So usually, as long as it's the same duration, then you'll be okay. But if you have to change your duration or split it, instead of shooting for a week straight, you're shooting 3 days now, and next month you're shooting 4 days, then that's going to become more of a hassle for you.
And I imagine if like you set it up for June and then things got pushed back to October, you probably have to refill out some paperwork too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's various.
We've never had that issue because we would do ours. We would strategically know when we had to do it in order to have it for the shoot. So
Well, like
generally,
go ahead and fill it out like 2 weeks ahead of time. By that time, you're
Right.
pretty sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
right, and we haven't had anything get shifted that close to production. So we haven't run into that problem. But in my asking questions from this company that we worked with and talking to the different people that helped us out, I got the feeling that if we had to, if something comes up, knowing how small of a house we were, they would shift. If I was diligent about contacting them pretty immediately, not waiting till after all the dates had passed and then saying, "Oh, we didn't actually get to shoot. Can I move it?" I think they'd be pretty cool about just shifting the dates to a different time.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of this stuff just comes down to being a professional and acting like a professional, and people are going to, like, just as within all aspects of production, people are going to be more willing to work with you and help you out if you have your shit together. And
Right.
the same thing, that's that right there, people, is another reason why you want to at the very least dip your toes in this and figure out how it works, because someday you might find yourself in the fortunate position of Mike Howard, having a feature film shot that you would like to be able to shop around to people, or Michael Babbitt, who is getting ready to shoot an actual Hollywood film with Hollywood actors backed by Hollywood money, and that stuff doesn't happen if their first conversation with you, they realize that you have no idea what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The more experience you have doing things on a professional level, the further you'll be able to go when opportunity does arise.
Yeah.
So just to give people a ballpark, and for the sake of people watching this down the road, it's the end of February, February 29th, Leap Day, of 2016. But at about this time, what are the going rates for? And I know a lot of this depends on exactly what you're trying to do in your production, but can you ballpark for people? Because you threw around a lot of big numbers of coverage. $1 million of coverage.
Oh yeah,
$2 million
yeah.
of coverage. What about does production insurance cost? Let's go with Mike Howard first.
Yeah, for us, like I said, we had to do some different segments, but one of the main segments was about a month time frame, just under it, and that was just about $1,000. And so
$1,000 for a month coverage.
yeah,
Okay.
and so it depends on exactly one, who you have and what kind of things they can help you with. Michelle was great for us, and so I'm sure she was working real hard at finding little things to kind of help and shave off here and there. She knew that we were on a pretty limited budget. So if you find people like Michael Babbitt was talking about, that deal with it specifically, then they know all the little kind of shortcuts that maybe you don't need this exact amount, or maybe you don't need this little piece here that comes by default in the insurance, and taking that off saves you $80, or whatever, and so it can go. And then workman's comp, I mean, just for a couple people, you can be looking at $800 or more for a short amount of time. So that changes too, depending on the days and how much you need.
Okay. So at least for the general insurance, you got, what was it, like $1 to $2 million worth of coverage for about a month, and it was around $1,000 for the specific situation you were in?
Yeah. I think that the norm that you'll have just kind of by default is $1 million occurrence and $2 million aggregate, and so that's kind of the going norm. And so, like I said, with the hospital, they wanted $3 million. You might run into little things like that, but I think most people are pretty happy with 1/2.
People who are letting you play around their oxygen tanks tend to want a lot of coverage. Now, Michael Babbitt, with your shorts, again, a lot of those were 1, maybe 2-day shoots, pretty small crews and everything. About what did the insurance run on those?
It's actually more expensive than doing it at a longer period.
Really?
Because you're doing it. They're giving you a small. It's like anything. You go into.
It's like going to Disney World.
Well, you go to a convenience store. And a 20-ounce Coke is $1.99. You go to the grocery store and a 64-ounce Coke is 99 cents.
Right.
So the smaller it is, the more they're able to charge you more, because you're asking for very specific treatment, stuff like that.
Right.
Because I think ours were, the longest we've had has been over a 3-day period, and if I'm remembering right, it was somewhere between $200 and $300 for the 3-day period.
Okay.
For the coverage.
So it was definitely less. It was just more per day.
Oh yeah. It was just more expensive in the sense that it was for 3 days ours was $300. For 30 they got it for $1,000.
Right. Okay.
So you're paying a large. You're paying an individual rate is higher. An individual day rate would be higher, but overall it's definitely still less expensive.
Okay.
Although I'm curious what you guys did with your Michael Howard. I'm curious what you guys did with your workman comp, because we were paying about 2% of our salaries was what went into workman's comp. Because you said it was like yours was like $800.
That was for a couple coverage on just 2 of the actors that we had for one particular day. So that just like everything else, like you said, 1 day versus 3 days.
Right. Got it.
So when we did pay like that $1,000, it was for like a 3-week chunk. But had we done it in 3 days, then might have still been a couple hundred.
Okay, yeah, because workman's comp is roughly about 2% of whatever the salary is. Now I don't know what it is if you're not paying salaries. I don't know if there's like they figure out some basis the budget. I don't know how they do that, because that wasn't an issue, so I don't know what that would be. But for us, it was about 2%, and then of course you add SAG into that, and you got all the other stuff that you got to pay too.
Paperwork, lovely paperwork.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, because I remember in one of our earlier episodes, Michael Babbitt, you had talked about how a lot of things, particularly with SAG, are relative to your budget. And so, like, how much you have to pay your actors is dependent on the size of the budget. And as your budget goes up, what people's day rates are and everything goes up. As in either of you guys' experience, is your insurance rate at all tied to what your budget is? Just what you need coverage for?
Yep.
Okay.
If you need $1 million, and 1/2, it's going to be the same whether you're Iron Man 3 or, of course, Iron Man 3 is probably going to have more than 1/2, but
that's in that movie, yeah.
Yeah.
One or two.
The insurance, it's going to be the same for whoever.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's surprisingly affordable. Like you said, for a long weekend shoot, maybe 2 weekends, you're looking at hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. And Michael, you actually did a full almost month-long feature for about $1,000. And then obviously the worksman comp and everything, that stuff adds up. But it's surprisingly affordable considering what I was afraid it would be. So
Yeah.
you have calmed my fears a little bit, gentlemen. Thank you.
The only problem is when you have, some lower, budget indie films, if your whole budget is $3,000 and you're paying $1,000 in insurance, without even paying anybody, then a third of your budget can be gone just like that. So that's kind of where people usually take that shortcut and don't insure because they want to use it, like Michael's saying, on good sound or, being able to afford this actor or this location or food or, whatever. And so that's where it goes, but really it's to protect you. There's so many things that can go wrong, and like Michael was saying with the the car stunt, I mean, that same type of thing can happen just going up some stairs. If your actor's thinking about their line and they know that they've got to be 6 feet behind the Steadicam and they're trying to hit that mark and then they trip on the stair and fall and break a knee or hit their head or something like that, same boat, so it's anything can happen. And you can just think about the times you walk around your apartment or something and stub a toe that you never thought of or did before. Something could and will happen, so you're really just protecting yourself for that.
Right. Now, I guess one last question I had is, in you guys' experience of actually going out and getting money from actual producers, I know this probably doesn't happen when you're hitting up family and friends for money, but when you go to an actual producer looking for money, somebody who has invested in films before, is that one of the questions that they ask when you go and ask them for money? Is they say, I guess this kind of ties back into our question of at what point do you go in and get insurance? Like when you're pitching to somebody that you need money, in your experience, do people ask you, how much is your insurance? Let's make sure we figure that into the, how much you're asking for and everything?
Oh, well, I mean, the insurance is always part of the budget, but in our experience, I've never had anybody that's provided an investment that's ever asked for it. It's always, it's the location, just knowing that you have it for the actors. So that's never happened.
Kind
for
of the
me,
assumption that if you're coming to somebody of that level, then you probably know enough to get production insurance.
You would think that would be obvious, but it's probably not. I'm sure there are plenty of people that do try to, make that decision. Do we take that extra money and put it into post-production FX,
Right.
Yeah, when I was pitching, the investor and stuff, that was a question they asked, when we were talking about budget and stuff. But I don't think that becomes a requirement from them. Usually it's more of, it becomes a line item. If you're getting to that point where you're putting together a budget proposal or whatever, then you certainly want to put that in there.
Right.
Because if
you don't want to tell somebody this is a $10,000 movie, you get $10,000 from them, then you go to get the insurance and you say, oh yeah, that $10,000, that actually needs to be $14,000.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, all right, cut your sound department some or something. They're going to want you to find a different place to make up that money. So yeah, you certainly want to go, and then you want to put everything in your budget, and then if they balk at it or whatever, then you start cutting things down or whatever. But certainly make that a plan on any production you're doing at the onset, and then go from there as needed.
Right. Okay. Well, awesome, guys. I really appreciate it. Do you have any last bits of advice for people getting ready to start shooting something? Things to consider in getting insurance?
Well, I will say I love my art. I love my craft. I love doing it, but I don't want to do it from jail.
There you go. Sound advice.
Yeah, like I said before, you never know what could happen. It could be the easiest shoot with 2 or 3 people in the living room, and someone could trip, something could happen. So, really you're just protecting yourself, the equipment, the people, and all of that. So, it should be a part of it.
Right.
Anything can always happen. It was like I was saying earlier, just today, outside shoot, real run-of-the-mill kind of thing. A little bit of wind caught the reflector on the stand, and it came down and hit a dude in the head.
And that's not something you can plan for. That's it's just nature happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Conrad Arnold, our co-host, folks, who finally joined in.
I've been very talkative today.
50 minutes into the episode.
I 13 hours on set, by the way. So
yeah, well,
I'm a little
Conrad's right. It's not really a matter of will it happen, if it happens. It's really a matter of it's going to happen to you at some point. So whether or not you're ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I want to meet the
your coverage is per incident. So if your deductible on rented equipment is $5,000, and you have a $4,000 repair on a camera, and then a $4,000 repair on, some mixing equipment, then you spent $8,000, and you still haven't even been able to use your insurance. So, keep those things in mind as well.
Yep.
Oh, jeez. Well, it sounds like a real web, but at the same time a necessary one. And the way you guys explained it does sound a little bit simpler than than I would have imagined. So that's really great. I'll definitely.
It's seriously not any harder than getting car insurance.
There we go.
It isn't.
Yeah, it's literally a form. You fill out a form and let them do it.
Right. So, I definitely will add as much information from this as we can, links and stuff in the show notes. Mike Howard, if you can send me the information for the people you use and everything, I'll definitely include that. Michael Babbitt, if you remember the name of if you have a chance to look up the company you use, just send me a link and we'll definitely include that in the show notes for you guys.
Use the carry one because mine's not local. And I'd rather the local businesses get it. So.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, if they're out of carry.
You cut out for a second. I didn't hear the beginning of that, but.
Yeah, it's getting a little choppy. I just said I'm not going to send you mine because stick with the carry one because she's local. Give her the business.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. There you go. Keep your business local, folks. So, well, thank you guys for joining us. Michael Babbitt all the way out from Houston. Prepping for his feature film shoot in China, in freaking China. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Well, just outside of Guangzhou. And we're actually going to be shooting several sequences in Hong Kong. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, I just got to ask real quick. Now that all of a sudden this is happening in China, did that is the actual film going to take place in China and you had to make setting changes?
Yeah. Well, we didn't really have to make that many setting changes because the setting was very. The setting could be anywhere for the film, so it wasn't really. We didn't really have to do hardly anything to the script to change it. We did write and add a couple of lines throughout it that make suggestions about how this crazy mix group of different people, all ethnicities, all races, genders, and stuff, came together. But there wasn't a whole lot that got added to it because it's not really that particularly relevant to the script.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. For anybody who's interested, the short films that lead into the Endless Whispers feature are available for free on YouTube or it's endlesswhispers.com? TheEndlessWhispers.com.
TheEndlessWhispers.com, yeah.
TheEndlessWhispers.com. You can go and check out all those shorts. And, I'd love to have you back on sometime, maybe again this summer, to talk about how pre-production's going and just learn more about this because it sounds really awesome. I'm really happy to hear this is finally coming together for you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a long road.
And thank you to your writing partner there for letting us take an hour out of your time.
He doesn't get any credit. No, he should actually get all the credit. It's been a long haul, and I got to I always have to throw out this caveat. Drives all the people that work with it. This is Hollywood, so. How often do you hear about feature films being made, big, huge budget feature films, that suddenly their investment gets pulled and it gets shelved and tabled? So until we're actually finished with the film and it's sold and released, I'm just going about it day by day, taking it, and we're going one step at a time.
Mm-hmm. All you can do is plan, be as prepared as you can be, and hopefully it all works out. We're rooting for you, man. It's
best of luck.
Thanks. Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And Michael Howard, you are finishing up your feature film, Where We're Meant to Be. Like you said, there's going to be a cast and crew screening in Cary at the end of March, and then it's going to have its official world premiere over in Colorado, which is pretty exciting. What else is there?
Sorry, what did you say? What was the last thing?
I said, what else do you have coming up? What can we expect from you? I mean, I'm sure you're tied up with that for a while.
It's also playing
on the festival circuit.
Yeah, for people, it's starting the festival circuit. It kicks off with Vail April 8th and 10th in Colorado, and then it's the next one after that is the Eastern North Carolina Festival just outside of Greenville, and that'll be
Winterville.
Yeah, Winterville.
Okay.
Greenville, yep.
Cool.
So that'll be April 30th. So people locally, if they want to see the film, that's pretty close place to check it out.
Absolutely, we'll definitely help plug that. And have you put any thought into what your next project will be, feature or short, or you're just focused on getting this one out there right now?
Yeah, and right now that's the main focus. I've got other, story ideas and things I've written pieces of, but until this one's fully done, that's kind of been on the back burner for now.
Okay, cool. Well, best of luck to both you guys, and thank you again for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Conrad, for showing up after a long day of shooting.
The man.
And thank you to everybody watching. You guys know where you can find this stuff, the Local Film Talk YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to get the episodes as soon as they come out. If you don't have time to sit down and watch it, you can always go subscribe to the Local Film Talk podcast on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Local Film Talk. You can see a lot of our stuff on Triangle Life TV, and I think that pretty much covers it. Email address, localfilmtalk@gmail.com. I lucked out. I was able to snatch up all the basic ones. I didn't have to add a bunch of numbers to all this stuff. It's cool. So this has been another episode of Local Film Talk. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next week.